Hollywood loves to sell you the dream, the flashing cameras, the endless fame, the illusion that once you're in, you're untouchable. But that's a lie. In truth, the same industry that builds legends can erase them in a heartbeat. One wrong move, one word too bold, and the calls stop. Careers vanish. Do you really think stardom is forever? Stay tuned, because these 15 stories prove that Hollywood's gatekeepers decide who stays and who gets shut out. Lindsay Lohan. At just 11 years old, Lindsay Lohan stole hearts with The Parent Trap. By her teens, she was the darling of Hollywood, cementing her status with Freaky Friday and Mean Girls. Studios saw her as the future, smart, funny, bankable. She was supposed to be the actress who grew up on screen and became one of Hollywood's endearing leading ladies. But fame that arrives too young often burns too hot. By her early 20s, Lohan was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. A string of arrests, court visits, and rehab stints turned her into late-night joke material. Paparazzi swarmed her every move, and instead of box office hits, her name became tied to scandals. Behind the cameras, directors complained she was unreliable, productions reported constant delays, insurers didn't want to cover her, making her nearly impossible to cast in big-budget films. Hollywood is merciless with risk. One day you're the brightest young star in the business, the next you're too expensive to gamble on. That's exactly what happened to Lohan. By the mid-2000s, her once unstoppable career had all but collapsed. She's worked sporadically since, but never again with the momentum she once commanded. Lindsay Lohan's story is a textbook example of how quickly Hollywood abandons those who falter. She wasn't erased by a single mistake, but by a long, painful unraveling in front of the world. Megan Fox. She was the face of a blockbuster era. Megan Fox exploded onto screens with Transformers, her charisma and presence so magnetic that the franchise itself seemed tied to her image. By her early 20s, she was everywhere. Magazine covers, red carpets, and fans declaring her the new it girl. But Hollywood has a short fuse for defiance. In 2009, at the height of her fame, Fox gave an interview that changed everything. Asked about her director, Michael Bay, she said his style reminded her of a dictator. That one quote set off a chain reaction. Headlines flared, executives bristled, and behind the curtain, it said that Steven Spielberg himself advised she be cut from the next Transformers film. Almost overnight, the star of one of the biggest movie franchises on Earth was gone. The scripts arriving at her door were suddenly smaller, the prestige roles vanishing like smoke, and while Fox insisted she had endured toxic treatment in Hollywood, the industry had already stamped her with a new label: unprofessional. Her downfall wasn't just about one remark, it was about how fragile stardom can be when power is challenged. For Fox, speaking out meant losing her place in Hollywood's most profitable spotlight. She has worked since, but the trajectory was never the same. Megan Fox went from unstoppable icon to cautionary tale. Her story is proof that in an industry built on image, one sentence can exile you forever.
Wesley Snipes. In the 1990s, Wesley Snipes was untouchable. He wasn't just a star, he was the action hero of his era. With roles in New Jack City, White Men Can't Jump, and especially the Blade trilogy, he proved he could carry massive films on his shoulders. At a time when black actors rarely led big-budget franchises, Snipes broke barriers. But then came the downfall that no studio would defend: the tax man. In 2008, Snipes was convicted of failing to file millions in returns. Suddenly, the man who once looked invincible on screen was sentenced to years behind bars. The headlines were merciless, and Hollywood doesn't do second chances when the law is involved. When he walked out of prison, he tried to come back, even landing a role in The Expendables 3, but the glory days were gone. Studios saw him as too risky, too stained by scandal. In an industry built on image, his name was no longer bankable. Snipes has suggested his exile wasn't just about money. He believed the industry resented his independence, his refusal to bow to the usual Hollywood system. Maybe he was right, but in the end, it didn't matter. To casting directors, he was now a liability. The Hollywood's heroes are only heroes until they aren't. Wesley Snipes went from breaking ceilings to hitting a wall that he could never quite climb over again. Rose McGowan. In the late 1990s, Rose McGowan was everywhere. She had the looks, the edge, and the roles that defined an era.
Scream, Jawbreaker, and the hit series Charmed. She was the cool girl Hollywood couldn't get enough of. But McGowan was fighting a hidden battle. Long before it was headline news, she accused powerful figures of wrongdoing. She refused to stay silent even when the cost was clear, and the cost was devastating. Casting directors stopped calling. Studios quietly labeled her as unstable and hard to work with. The same industry that once plastered her face on posters now treated her like she was radioactive. Behind the scenes, she claimed her career was deliberately sabotaged, and the evidence was in plain sight. Her opportunities dried up almost overnight. McGowan's story isn't about losing roles because of lack of talent. It's about retaliation. She exposed a dark side of the system, and for that, she was erased. Even as the world later applauded her bravery, Hollywood never fully opened its doors again. She traded stardom for truth, and the trade was final. Rose McGowan's exile is a chilling reminder that Hollywood rewards silence, not honesty. By refusing to bend, she gave up everything the industry had promised, but in doing so, she became something larger than a star. She became a symbol of defiance. Sinead O'Connor. She was never a conventional star. With her shaved head, haunting voice, and fearless honesty, Sinead O'Connor was unlike anyone else in the music and entertainment world of the early 1990s. Her version of "Nothing Compares to You" was a global anthem. For a moment, she was unstoppable, but Sinead didn't follow rules. In 1992, she performed live on national television and made a move that stunned the world. In a single act of protest, she forced audiences to confront an uncomfortable truth. The reaction was swift, brutal, and unforgiving. The studio audience fell silent. Headlines raged. Hollywood and the music industry turned their backs. Within days, she was blacklisted from television appearances, concerts were canceled, and stations refused to play her music. What should have been remembered as courage was branded as chaos. Opportunities vanished. The momentum of a once thriving career was gone. And even though history later revealed she was ahead of her time, it didn't matter. She had already paid the price. Sinead O'Connor's story isn't about fading talent. Her voice remained as powerful as ever. It's about what happens when someone refuses to conform to the entertainment industry's silent rules. She wasn't undone by scandal, but by truth delivered too early, too raw, too loud for her era. Hollywood didn't just exile her. She went from stand-up stages to Hollywood royalty. Monique's breakout in Precious 2009 was so raw and unforgettable that it earned her an Academy Award. The world saw her as a powerhouse, and winning that golden statue should have been her ticket to decades of leading roles, but instead, it marked the beginning of her exile. Behind the scenes, Monique refused to play the silent game. She revealed that she was pressured to campaign for Precious on her own dime, flying, smiling, shaking hands, all while the studio pocketed the profits. When she declined, whispers started. The labels came fast, difficult, ungrateful, hard to work with. It wasn't public, it was subtle. Casting calls stopped. Big-name directors looked away, and the very people who should have been allies allegedly contributed to her downfall. Monique herself called it what it was, blackballing. Instead of bending, she spoke out, accusing Hollywood's power circle of erasing her for refusing to bow. The fallout was brutal. Here was an Oscar winner suddenly unable to book the roles that should have been lined up for her. She went from center stage to near invisibility, not because of lack of talent, but because she challenged the system. Monique's story is one of the most chilling reminders in modern Hollywood. You can win the industry's highest honor and still be shown the door. All it takes is daring to say no. Charlie Sheen. For years, Charlie Sheen had it all. He came out swinging in classics like Platoon and Wall Street, but it was television that made him a household name. With 2.5 Men, Sheen became the highest-paid actor on TV, earning nearly $2 million an episode. Viewers loved him, studios banked on him. By the late 2000s, he was everywhere. Then came the meltdown. His private chaos spilled into the public eye. He gave bizarre interviews, clashed with producers, and blasted 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre in headline-making tirades. Suddenly, the most bankable actor on television was seen as uncontrollable. In 2011, Warner Brothers pulled the plug. They fired him from the show, cutting off his most lucrative role in a stunning move. Overnight, Hollywood's golden boy became untouchable. Producers whispered that he was impossible to insure. Studios avoided him. And while he tried to rebound with anger management, the stigma of his implosion never faded. Even when he revealed his health struggles, hoping to reset the narrative, it didn't save his career. Hollywood had already slammed the door. Charlie Sheen's downfall wasn't about one incident, it was about a chain reaction, an unraveling played out in front of millions. He became living proof of how fast the industry erases a star when their chaos threatens profit. Once adored, now a warning. Mickey Rourke. In the 1980s, Mickey Rourke wasn't just a star, he was the star. With films like 9.5 Weeks and Angel Heart, critics compared him to legends like Brando. He had the smolder, the danger, the kind of magnetic presence that made audiences believe he was destined to become one of Hollywood's greatest leading men. But Mickey Rourke burned bright and burned fast. On set, he clashed with directors. He dismissed producers. Stories spread of storming off productions, of refusing to compromise. The very industry that crowned him began to whisper that he was uncontrollable. Then came the shocker. At the peak of his career, Rourke walked away to become a professional boxer. Fans were stunned. Hollywood was horrified. For studios, it was confirmation this was a man too unpredictable to risk millions on. The boxing years left scars, literally and figuratively. His once famous face was battered, altered by both the ring and later surgeries. When he tried to return to acting in the 1990s, the doors were locked. Casting directors didn't want the trouble. Studios didn't want the liability. It wasn't until 2008 with The Wrestler that Rourke clawed back into the spotlight, earning an Oscar nomination. But even that comeback was bittersweet. He admitted himself that he had burned too many bridges, that Hollywood's trust was gone. Mickey Rourke's story isn't just about talent, it's about ego, rebellion, and how quickly the town can exile those who refuse to play by its rules. Hollywood didn't just turn on him, he helped build his own exile. For decades, Mel Gibson was Hollywood royalty. He conquered the screen with Mad Max and Lethal Weapon, then conquered the director's chair with Braveheart, which earned him the Academy's highest honors. He wasn't just an actor or a director, he was a brand, bankable, beloved, powerful. And then it all crashed. In 2006, Gibson was arrested for driving under the influence. During the incident, his words exploded across headlines, remarks that were shocking, hateful, and impossible for Hollywood to ignore. His reputation collapsed overnight. The fallout was swift. Studios distanced themselves. Producers whispered that hiring him was career suicide. His name disappeared from casting lists. In a town that thrives on image, Gibson's had turned toxic. Years later, recordings surfaced that painted him in an even darker light, solidifying the industry's stance. For almost a decade, he was a ghost in Hollywood, a man who once ruled the box office, now completely erased from the mainstream conversation. Then, in 2016, Gibson clawed his way back with Hacksaw Ridge, earning another Oscar nomination. But the exile left scars. Even with recognition, he never regained the level of untouchable power he once wielded. Mel Gibson's story is a reminder that even the most bankable star can be taken down by words that can't be unsaid. Hollywood forgives many things, but some reputations can't be rebuilt, no matter how many trophies sit on your shelf.